This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A source with knowledge of yesterday's talks in the Oval Office says Prime Minister Mark Carney has been expressing renewed interest in the Keystone XL pipeline. It is a project U.S. President Donald Trump has been tweeting about, and CBC News has learned Carney is hoping it will lead to tariff relief for Canada's steel and aluminum industries. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. And Janice, it's been a while since anyone talked about the Keystone XL pipeline. Remind us what that is.
Marcia, remember this pipeline was a hot political debate like a decade ago. TransCanada, which is now TC Energy, it had a proposal to send Alberta oil south, first to U.S. refineries, but then onwards, it hoped, to world markets. This was stopped by Barack Obama's administration amid intense pressure from environmentalists. During his first presidency, Donald Trump revived it. But then when Joe Biden was elected, he stopped it again. And along the way, the Alberta government lost an awful lot of money in its equity stake in a bid to recover the company's losses through a legal proceeding under the previous NAFTA agreement. That also failed. But Donald Trump has always liked this pipeline idea. And a source with direct knowledge of the president's conversation with Mark Carney yesterday says the prime minister raised the idea of reviving this pipeline proposal as some part of a bigger cooperative deal between Canada and the U.S. But it's unclear how the trade-offs around this partnership that Carney's pitching would really work. The company has moved on. And as far as we know, this isn't a pipeline that a proponent has put in front of, for example, the new Federal Major Projects Office to prioritize.
So why would Carney bring up this pipeline so long after it was written off?
Well, Alberta wants another pipeline, says it needs one. Danielle Smith making this clear once again during her trip to lobby Ottawa this week.
If we had seen the 3 pipeline projects built that had been proposed over the years, we would have another 2.5 million barrels a day of production.
Meanwhile, BC Premier David Eby was firing off another round in his war of words with Alberta's Premier yesterday for continuing to suggest the federal government can just overrule the objectors on the West Coast.
If we want to say we're going to get rid of that tanker ban and we're going to go after your way of life, let's at least make sure that the conversation is about a real project.
The politics around any new pipeline are rough, but perhaps the Prime Minister is hoping that a new pipeline going south instead of west could be a less controversial alternative.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. National Guard troops are now just outside Chicago and preparing to deploy. The Guard members have been pulled in from Texas. It's part of the U.S. president's push to, as he says, crush crime in the city. The state and city are suing to block the deployment. Brandon Johnson is Chicago's mayor. He says it is unnecessary and unconstitutional.
The federal government is out of control. This is one of the most dangerous times in our nation's history. An unhinged, double-minded, simple-minded man who is not being held accountable.
A federal judge in Illinois has given the Trump administration until tonight to respond to the lawsuit. The suit is asking to block the mobilization of any National Guard troops in the state. Ukrainian military officers are warning the Kremlin is waging a shadow war far away from the front lines. It involves Ukrainian civilians and improvised explosive devices. Covert assassinations, railway sabotage, and mysterious arsons are bringing a whole new dimension to the war. The CBC's Ben Maku went to Kyiv to investigate.
At a Kyiv training facility with Ukrainian soldiers preparing for a war that isn't just being fought on the front lines. An officer, who CBC cannot name per Ukrainian protocol, warns me about Kremlin spies inside his country.
The number of agents that Russia constantly maintains in Ukraine is excessively high. You can never underestimate the enemy.
Using the secrecy of the Telegram app, Russia's FSB spy agency has recruited desperate civilians in need of money or duped them into assassination plots and planting IEDs, to railway arsons and other sabotage in their country. In May, Ukrainian authorities foiled a plot involving a teen given an IED that Russia directed him to hide at a busy military recruitment center. Then in July, a Russian-sponsored assassin gunned down a top-ranking Ukrainian colonel in Kyiv. Stephen Ray is a counterterrorism analyst at the U.S.-based Institute for Strategic Dialogue.
Russia is basically exploiting vulnerable individuals who are desperate for some sort of money to carry out these attacks. They don't care if they're teenagers. They don't care.
To Ray, it's classic FSB.
We've seen this dozens of times where individuals across Europe who may or may not know of the Russian government's role in all of this are taking these cryptocurrency payments just to make a quick buck and carrying out these acts of arson and other types of criminality.
As the war in Ukraine nears its 4th birthday, so too does the shadow war. Ben Maku, CBC News, Kyiv.
Some high-profile figures are joining the Gaza peace talks in Egypt. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will be leading the U.S. delegation. He'll be joined by Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Israel and Hamas are continuing in direct negotiations on a plan put forward by the U.S. president. The CBC's Crystal Comansing has more from Jerusalem.
I think the world have some forgot what Israel and what I've been through.
Hours after Yotan Shemriz, a survivor of October 7th, spoke at a memorial in Tel Aviv, more delegates are set to join peace talks in Egypt. Shemriz's brother, Alon, is one of the 48 hostages mediators are working to repatriate as a part of a 20-point agreement between Israel and Hamas.
We're in very serious negotiations.
U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed the arrival of American delegates in Sharm el-Sheikh yesterday and expressed optimism about a deal.
I think there's a possibility that we could have peace in the Middle East, even beyond the Gaza situation.
In an effort to nudge talks along, the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is joining a team of mediators. The prime minister of Qatar and the head of Turkey's intelligence agency will also take part. Both of those nations have leverage as they could bar or expel Hamas. Egyptian officials have said talks are currently focused on initial steps in the plan: ending the war, bringing aid into Gaza, returning the hostages, and the release of Palestinian prisoners. Global leaders are encouraging all parties to seize the opportunity for peace. Crystal Comansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
A dispute between Via Rail and Canadian National is getting expensive. Via Rail is a crown corporation. Its trains run on tracks owned by CN. But last year, CN imposed speed limits at its crossings. And since then, Via has had to give millions of dollars worth of travel credits to delayed passengers. Gabriel Lemarquand-Perrault has the story.
Via Rail has been paying the price for its dispute with CN since the fall of 2024. CBC has learned that the conflict related to CN's decision to impose speed limits at railroad crossings has cost nearly $31 million in travel credits in 9 months. Travel credits of up to 100% of the price paid are offered to passengers whenever a train is more than an hour late on the Quebec-Windsor corridor, the busiest segment.
$31 million is a significant amount.
Jacques Roy is a retired professor specializing in transportation and logistic management.
It adds to the frustration of Via Rail users who are facing unreliable scheduled service.
But Via Rail sees light at the end of the tunnel. For the past few weeks, trains have been able to run at a constant, albeit reduced, speed over longer segments without having to confirm the automatic activation of level crossings. Federal Transport Minister Stephen McKinnon says Via Rail's performance is unacceptable.
Well, this is obviously suboptimal, and we're going to need to focus very, very squarely on improving those results.
Both Via Rail and CN insist they will not compromise on safety, but the two cannot agree on the extent of the problem at level crossings and the measures that should be put in place to protect all passengers. Gabriel Lemarquand-Perrault, CBC News, Ottawa.
Nobel Week continues, and today it's the prize for chemistry.
Susumu Kitagawa, Kyoto University, Japan. Richard Robson, University of Melbourne, Australia, and Omar Yagi, University of California at Berkeley, USA, for the development of metal organic frameworks.
The scientists make new materials that have large cavities on the inside. They could be used, for example, to separate toxic molecules from wastewater, and eventually they could help reduce pollution and combat climate change. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.